I'm sure you're getting tons of people telling you what products you should be releasing next. And look, I'll fully admit I'm guilty of this too. But in the end, it comes down to you and your team, your gut, your data, your understanding of the brand. Now, sometimes that will lead to the right choice. Sometimes you might make the wrong choice, but that's okay. What's important is to go into the process understanding what the category you're entering looks like and what the challenges of this journey will look like. Here to talk about his own journey, innovating within several categories, is Kodiak Cakes CEO, Joel Clark.
Laugh when I was listening to Bill and Lee Keith talking about carob, because my mom was like that, man. We were brought up on carob and green smoothies and all kinds of stuff. She made her own, she would grind her own wheat bread, and everything we ate was whole wheat. We never had any white bread, never had any sugared cereal, and so I was always kind of bummed out about that growing up. But now I look back and I'm grateful. But if you've ever had a carob chocolate chip cookie, I would tell my mom, just don't make the cookies. Either make them chocolate chip cookies or I don't want them. We're not having them. It's not worth it. So when I was in graduate school, one of my favorite classes was this strategy class that I took. And it was great. Loved the class, and I thought everything was going well, and then I failed the final exam. And then they posted the results up on a wall. It's like if you made the cut in trying out for the high school basketball team. It was like I got cut. And I remember going up there, and everyone's looking at the results, and it says, Joel Clark, fail. I'm like, crap, that sucks. But I knew exactly why. And so we were having this discussion about forces or factors that you should consider when you're evaluating a business venture or when you're evaluating an industry to enter. And all the factors were super objective and data-driven. And even the professor said, what the managers want to do shouldn't really be considered. And I raised my hand and I said, I think that's completely false. I said, I think, you really need to be able to consider what you're passionate about. I said, I think that matters a ton. And so I went and I took the final exam and I argued that. And I said, look, if you're not passionate about it, especially as a small business person, as an entrepreneur, you will never be able to get through the obstacles that are up against you. You just won't be able to do it. And I think for me, that was, I think passion is just the foundation of everything that we've done at Kodiak Cakes, and it's why I was able to hang in there through a lot of years of just barrier after barrier, obstacle after obstacle, almost shutting the business down multiple times, and just barely getting through. I don't want to be cliche about passion, but the reason I bring it up is because I think it is actually a factor that needs to be considered when you evaluate something that you want to do as an entrepreneur. I found myself, every reason that I wanted to be an entrepreneur started to diminish. Being my own boss, what does that mean? That was gone really quickly, like that mattered. And then, the thought of making a lot of money as an entrepreneur, that was gone in about 2 months. And then it just becomes about surviving. So you just want to survive. The thought of like a big upside, that's gone. And then really, then pretty soon after that, any status from, this sounds cool to be an entrepreneur, that was gone really quick. It's like, what do you do? Oh, I run a little pancake brand. Oh, that's cute. I get that all the time. I sell pancake mix. It was really funny. And so really passion was the one thing that stayed. That was the one fire that stayed lit. And I think that's really what got us through. And I'll get back to passion kind of near the end because there's another real reason why I think it matters a lot. So I want to dive into kind of 3 ways that you can go to market. And I'm going to talk about kind of what our experience has been. And so the first way is to enter a high growth category. And we've seen examples of that, the bar category, beef jerky category. And another way is to create a new category. We've heard examples of that. And then the other way is to enter the way we say it is a hibernating category, because we're bear people at Kodiak Cakes. or a dead category, or a super tired category. And so, examples of these. And so entering a high growth category, it's like, some of the dynamics to consider. Buyers are pretty excited about categories like this. There's a lot of growth. There's room for entry, new entrants often. Consumers are excited about these categories. They're buying these. You do hear the phrase, with growth, with the rising tides, all boats rise. But how do you cut through the noise? Are you positioned well enough to actually do that? And I think people underestimate positioning. I do. I think people underestimate that sometimes. And sometimes people show up with Me Too products and think they're going to just rise along with the tide. And I think that could happen for a while, but I think to be super sustainable, you got to really make sure that we're differentiated enough and we have strong positioning. And how unique is your product and your story, and what is the risk level? The categories are big categories that are growing or noisy. How do you cut through? How much marketing will you need? Will it cost you a lot? What are the turns requirements? What are the hurdle rates? What do you have to sell per week, per store to stay around? So just some considerations to really think about. These are examples, I think, of high growth categories. And so then the next way is to create a new category. And let me skip the page. Let me go back to my notes. So in this situation, you're doing something that has never been done before, right? So you automatically have a great position. You have a unique position. It's wide open territory, right? You don't have any competition for a while if you can do it right. But what are the trade spends? How much educating are you going to have to do to get people to understand this new category that you're creating, this new product? We actually tried this. So in 2012, we launched Minute Muffins. So we had been following this trend, mug cake trend, and we were pretty excited about this. And I remember I heard a couple guys on NPR talking about what could you make in a mug in the microwave at work. And so they made a cake, and I was like, oh, that's a really cool idea. That's the first time I had heard about the mug cake trend. And so I went to the office, and I talked to Cameron. He's our COO, and I'm like, hey, have you heard of this mug cake trend? He's like, no, I haven't heard of it. So we're like, well, let's try it. So we put pancake mix in a mug, and we microwaved it, and it worked. And we're like, wow, this is really cool. So we started thinking about this, and we're like, but pancake in a cup, that doesn't sound as good. What about muffin in a cup? And so that's when we kind of came up with the idea, and we launched our Minute Muffins back in 2012. And so we were, as far as we know, the first to go to market with this single-serve microwavable baking product. Now, other companies had done some microwavable baking products. I know Betty Crocker had some items, but as far as we knew, we were the first single-serve muffin in a cup. So we were pretty stoked about that, and we started showing buyers, and the feedback was, oh wow, this is a super innovative product. Wow, this is great. Let's put it on the shelf. What we totally underestimated was the amount of education that we were going to have to do to get people to buy the product. And so it was a struggle. It was premature not only for the category, for people understanding what it was also premature for our little company. We just didn't have the money to really market it very well. And so it kind of bumbled along for a little bit, and then we actually kind of just tabled it and said, all right, we'll get back to that. And we had some accounts that were selling it, but we kind of put it aside and then started to refocus ourselves back to the core category that we were in, which was pancake mix. So the third way to enter the market is to enter a hibernating category. And this is actually kind of what we did at Kodiak Cakes. Although when we first kind of went to market, we didn't really realize it. We just had an idea, and we kind of went to market. But on the surface, this could seem like a riskier way to go, right? I mean, buyers are apathetic often about dead categories. They may not want to meet with you, and we ran into that all the time. Some buyers would say, yeah, I only review this category once every 2 years in the pancake category. So it was really hard to get in, which was what made us think we need to innovate into other categories, which is why we went into the Minute Muffin thing. Consumers don't want the product anymore. We heard that all the time. No one's buying pancake mix. People don't want to make pancakes anymore, Joel. They just want convenience. We don't want to do that. And so, is it a category problem? is it that the wrong products were in the category, right? And so you have to think about that. And so there's actually a fourth way to go, and this is really it's called winging it. And this is really kind of what we did, right? I mean, we weren't really thinking about the category and what the real dynamics were. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs do that. You have an idea. Ours was an old family recipe, my mom's recipe, Kodiak Cakes, his old pancake mix, passed down from my grandpa. It was whole wheat. It was really good. It tasted awesome. And my mom thought back in the 80s, there's a need for healthier products in the grocery store. And so she had the idea to take her recipe and make it into a product and go sell it. So when I was 8 years old, she made little homemade lunch sacks full of pancake mix, and I went around the neighborhood and sold them. And so that was like kind of the roots of Kodiak Cakes. And then years later, my older brother John, he took the recipe and created the brand Kodiak Cakes in 1995. And then I took it over in 97. He came to me one day, he's like, hey Joel, I need to go back to school. I've just been doing this on the side. This is yours if you want it. And so we did a contract, and he sold me the company for $1. I gave him a lot of shares back later, though. I didn't keep all the shares. I paid good money, but I still gave him some. So over the years, it became really hard for us to break through, and trends were not in our favor necessarily, health trends, and there wasn't a lot of money flowing into small emerging brands at the time. So we were forced to bootstrap for a long time. So I took the company over in 97. I was going to college. I bootstrapped for 7 years on the side until I actually went full-time with the company in 2004. And in 2004, my dad joined me out of retirement. He was 65, and he and I worked on the company together for about the next 5 years, and just little by little trying to break in. In 2009, we had kind of an inflection year. So my dad decided to retire in about 2009, and I hired a guy right out of school named Cameron Smith. He was finished up his undergrad, and I was looking for somebody that was young, not expensive, because I didn't have any money to pay anybody with a lot of experience, but I was hoped to find somebody that could really jump in and just shoulder this business with me and help me grow it. And that's exactly what happened. And so he came in really young, kind of had these blinders on. He didn't really care about the obstacles or what they were. He just wanted to build a business. And so he brought a lot of new energy into the brand and to me. And so we started to make some things happen. So 2014, we had a real inflection year. We had been starting to innovate and trying to figure that out. But what happened in 2014 was we started to think to ourselves, we need explosive growth. We need something some innovation that will really, really grow. Whereas in the past, our products had been kind of, we'd been turning maybe in the top third of the pancake category with a couple of items, but we weren't growing the category. We were just kind of there doing okay. So in 2014, or actually in 2013, Cameron comes to me, he's like, hey, Joel, I'm going to see if I can get us on Shark Tank. I'm like, go to town. I've never even seen the show. Go for it. And I'd seen like little bits and pieces of it. I knew what it was. I knew the concept. So he sends an email to the show just out of the blue. And I never even saw the email. I haven't to this day ever seen the email. I don't even know what he said. And so like a couple months later, he gets an email back, and they're like, hey, we want to put you guys on the show. We're like, all right, should we do this? We're like, yeah, okay, let's do it. So we go on the show. And it turns out to be just a huge exposure boost for the brand. And we had been selling in Target stores around the country prior to that. We had a lot of distribution, but it just was, kind of slow, steady growth. So Shark Tank was great because it brought us this big exposure boost that we didn't have to pay for. And so it became like a momentum booster. But it doesn't make your company. I mean, I think there are a lot of companies that have gone on Shark Tank that see a big spike and then it kind of levels off and then they never go anywhere. But what we did, we just got really lucky because we launched a really innovative product right after that. And this is where we really started to figure out how to innovate. So 2 months after the show aired, we launched Power Cakes at Target, and that was our high protein line. And so I had been mixing protein into my pancakes for years. But Cameron and I would talk about that, and we were like, man, is this just too niche-y? Like, could protein become a real thing in a mainstream product? And so we trademarked Power Cakes back in 2012, but we just sat on it for a couple years and didn't do anything with it. We finally decided to launch it, and it goes into Target a couple months after Shark Tank, and it just immediately shot to the top of the category. It blew out the previous number one SKU by 20%. So it became number one by a 20% margin, and it grew the category. And so what happened over the next couple of years, so from 2014 to 2017, our sales at Target went from 2 million to 10 million. We'll call it Retailer T. I'm not disclosing who that was. You forgot who I just said that was. Retailer T. We went from 2 million in sales to 10 million, and the category went from 13 million to 20 million. And so almost all of the growth that we brought was incremental growth. And so it was really an incredible story. Now we find that if we can get 5 items, it's kind of our critical mass, if we can get 5 items into a category, into the pancake category, we will grow the category double-digit growth year on year. And so now, it's like we're starting to think, it's like in retrospect, we're thinking about what are the dynamics that you need to consider? What are the category dynamics? Is it a big category? Is it a small category? Is it a growth category? Is it a dead category? And our strategy right now is to go after dead categories and figure out how to revitalize those categories. And so in retrospect, what should we have done? Like, what would business school teach you, right? What would logic teach you? Well, we never should have gone into the pancake category. I think that's one of the reasons why it took us so long. Plus, we didn't know anything about the consumer products business, so we had to just figure it out, and we had to bootstrap for a lot of years, so it just took a long time. And it took us a long time to figure out how to innovate. Nobody cared about pancakes, we were told over and over. We should have entered a more dynamic and a larger category. We should have raised capital earlier. We should have done consumer insights work to see if people actually would buy our product and actually pay the higher price point that we were demanding. Those are all really logical things. But what we did actually worked. And so what did we learn from the experience? Quiet categories can be good if you bring the right innovation, right? Strong, unique innovation. It's like creating a category in a way, but in a product that people already know about. And so we learned that you need explosive innovation. To go into a dead category that's struggling, that's tired, you need to think the innovation that we're bringing, is it going to build the category? If it's just going to steal share, forget it. But is it unique enough? Is it going to drive growth and bring incremental revenue and new people back to that category? If you can do that, then you really have a story. And creating a new category is great, but it can take a lot of money to educate. It's something that we totally underestimated. And then I think if you go into a big growing category, that's great too. I mean, will all boats rise? Yeah, possibly, but you really need to differentiate. Make sure your positioning is awesome. And then I think building a strong identity and authenticity. A broker once told me, this is probably like, 10 or 15 years ago. I was talking to this broker at a show once, and he goes, Joel, it's all about cosmetics. It's all about your packaging. And I sat there and I'm like, yeah, maybe that's half true, but what it's really all about is having a really, really strong identity and brand. And then your packaging just reflects that. But there's got to be depth, and especially today as consumers want to know the backstory behind companies. They want to know, how authentic is this brand? We interviewed a copywriter recently, and we gave her a homework assignment. And she came to us with this description about a product. And she simplified it down so much, and she told us, she said, people just want the information and they want it fast. And she stripped out all of the soul to the product. And we were like, that's not going to work. No way. You strip the soul out, and then people lose engagement. People want to be emotionally attached to brands. They really do. And then I think a lot of luck. I think that has to be admitted. We get a lot of lucky breaks, and you kind of need them. And you need fish. You need fish to jump in your boat. People say fish aren't going to jump in your boat. You kind of need them to. But you got to be out fishing, or the fish is never going to jump in your boat. But if you're out fishing and you're just working hard, you're trying everything you possibly can, something's going to jump in your boat at some point. They jumped into ours. And then I would say back to passion. I think this is kind of where I think, yeah, you need to be cautious. You need to build a rational plan, right? It needs to make sense. However, sometimes you actually do need just a little bit of emotional, subjective, blinded thought. That's what entrepreneurs do. Entrepreneurs defy logic. Not everything an entrepreneur does is logical. I mean, you think about what the Keiths talked about and mortgaging their house and buying a piece of equipment. That probably was not logical, but they had enough passion to make it work. And I think, you know, we've done so many things that way where we should not have done something according to logic, but we went ahead and did it anyway because we were that passionate about it that we didn't care and that we could make it. We felt like we could make it work. So I think passion is the one thing that will get you to think and act irrationally, and sometimes that's exactly what you need to do. So I look at now, now we're going into other categories and trying to take these lessons and apply them. So frozen waffles is an example of a category that we recently entered about just mid last year. And we tried to take all that we had learned, about the category. We felt like it was kind of a tired category, but it was bigger. But we felt like we don't want to enter unless we can actually grow and build this category. And then we looked at, and then this was where the passion kind of came in. We had so many people that said to us, don't go into frozen supply chain, guys. You guys are crazy. Don't do that. It's a whole new world. I mean, you guys are selling dry stuff. Don't do that. You're gonna say you guys could really fail. And that's where we just thought, we don't care. We're just gonna do it anyways. And so we got really passionate about it. We kind of just went against logic in a lot of ways. And I think looking back, would we have gone into frozen waffles knowing what we know now? I don't know. Would I have gone into the pancake category knowing what I know now? Probably not. But it's a darn good thing we did, and it's a darn good thing we went into frozen waffles. So I think passion is absolutely a consideration, and sometimes you have to act irrationally to make something work. Thank you.
All right, I gotta say it. It seems like picking what categories to enter is a real bear. But so one thing I want to touch upon is you have seen a lot of success in conventional retailers, even though you are a natural product. So how does your retail partners and what channels you want to be in, how does that tie into picking your strategy of where to go?
I think early on we made the decision to kind of skip the natural channel. And we did that out of necessity in a lot of ways because we were so small. It was just me and Cameron for quite a long time. And so we knew we didn't have a lot of resources to really go and build out that channel. We felt like it would take a lot of time and a lot of effort. It's very fragmented. But I think that was a good thing that was a good thing for us. And we believed that our product could do well in the mainstream channels, and it did. And so now, as we pick categories, we are looking at the size of the category, and we're looking at the retailers and trying to figure out, okay, where could we actually make a big impact faster? And so I think it's helped us, but it has put a mindset into us about not necessarily worrying so much about the natural channel. Yet we are going back and working in the channel, but that just kind of became our mindset that we needed to be really careful about our resources and try to have an impact with fewer people.
You said that your plan going forward is to focus on dead categories specifically. What led you to that specific strategy?
I think just our experience in the pancake category. I said this before, but so many times we looked back and we thought, man, we never should have gone into pancakes. We should have gotten into bars or snacking or something else. But then we started to think, well, but that actually was a good strategy. It actually was. It gave us, there wasn't a lot of noise there, so it did give us time. We were kind of under the radar for a long time, so it gave us enough time to figure out a strategy, to figure out how to innovate. And so that became a blessing to us. So now we look at, all right, what are other categories that need some innovation that where we could take whole grains, high protein, and non-GMO ingredients and actually have an impact?
And you did go back and focus on muffins again, the
Yeah.
Minute Muffin Cups. What had changed for you guys and the market that led you to make that choice?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so what happened in that, we went back and focused on that, but new entrants into that category helped us, actually. So Duncan Hines came in, for example, and they're selling like a single-serve baking mix that you actually put into your own mug. But that helped us because that actually did a lot of the educating needed for that type of product. And then it really just solidified our position against them. And so they kind of did some trailblazing for us. And so we were able to go back and now do some significant marketing that has been really, really successful now.
Does that mean you prefer to enter categories where you can position yourself against a product that's maybe not using the best ingredients or isn't better for you or natural versus saying, oh, there's a lot of natural players like me in that category and I'm going to go after that? It seems like you're almost better in opposition.
Yeah, that's true. I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think, but would we go back and try to create a new category again? I think we would if it were the right thing, but I think knowing now what it would take to go into that, I think we're looking at other categories where we have opportunities to reinvent. So we'd probably prioritize those over creating a new category at this point.
So you have taken investment from a strategic investor to help you grow the company. How much do they play a role in shaping where you're going to go and what categories you're going to enter? How do you have the conversation with them about, I feel really strongly about this X product?
Yeah, our investors brought a lot to the table in terms of helping us with vision, expanding our vision for where Kodiak Cakes can go. And I think that's been one of the great things about having good investors on board. And so they've helped us, but I think one thing that they also talked a lot about, Steve Hughes is our main investor from a group called Sunrise. And Steve would always say, hey, Joel, think about what house you're building. What does it look like? So we kind of created like an actual image of a cabin. We call it the Kodiak cabin. And it's like floor by floor. What are we doing? Like what's our next category? That's level 3. What's the next category? That's level 4. So they've helped us a ton think about what are we building, and then to actually figure out our innovation pipeline over the next few years.
Well, it seems like you guys have a really symbiotic relationship where you're working together really well. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate all the insight you've brought to our stage today.
Got it. Thanks, Carol.
Thanks.